This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Do you love NFL football fun and booze? Join us at Thirst and Goal Podcast every Saturday night for weekly NFL coverage, whiskey, bourbon, scotch, and beer reviews. We mix expert football analysis with signature drinks, original segments, and lots of laughs.
Yes, that's right, football fans. Please join us at Thirst and Goal Podcast by heading over to thirstandgoal.buzzsprout.com or search Thirst and Goal on the web. If you're tired of boring podcasts, come join our football party.
Greetings, Dogpound Nation, and welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast with your host today, Neil Dunworth. And as always, we are part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. You can check us also at Browns Access, and you can check a lot of other Cleveland Browns related podcasts. You may see them pop up on Browns Access over the next coming days, which is really cool. So we've got a nice little partnership with Browns Access. You can check any writing from John Cahill or at John Cahill _IRL, or you can check any of my writing there on Browns Access. So give those guys a follow as well. So today I have a very special guest. He is eyes and ears that we had at the Combine. It's Browns Power Ranger, and some of you guys may have seen him. He caused a bit of a stir with he's the protector of the jersey, as you may know, with all the different nameplates at the back. And he caused a bit of a stir when Brady Quinn got to chat to him, and we will talk to Browns Power Ranger about that in a moment. But firstly, I just want to welcome him onto the podcast and say, did you know that you were the man that gave me my first ever White Claw? I never had White Claw before I met you.
Oh, wow. That will go with me to my grave. That is incredible. I didn't know I held that kind of power.
That's it. Yeah. So when I met you at the Bills game, when I was over in Cleveland, you handed me a White Claw, and I never looked back for the rest of it. Well, I didn't look back because I drank a lot of alcohol that day, but I never looked back from White Claw afterwards. But you can't get it here in Ireland. Hard seltzers aren't a thing, but I've brewed my own beer and I make my own alcohol here, and I've got a hard seltzer in my fermenter at the moment. So I'm hoping that it can be half as nice as White Claw, because if it is, I'm going to take over the world over this side of the Atlantic with my own hard seltzers, hopefully. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
You spawned it all.
I won't take a huge royalty from that, so that's fine. But I would gladly drink a seltzer from your neck of the woods, made from your own hands.
Little did you think that when you handed me that can and literally said, well, we won't get it in through security, so I need to get rid of it, that it would have been the start of something so beautiful. Yeah.
Who knew? Here we are.
Here we are, is right. Here we are. But a more pressing matter is you were at the Combine, and you were very active at the Combine, and I suppose really that's one of the reasons that you got you on tonight, is just to see what your I suppose your takings were from the Combine itself. So you mentioned to me just off air there that you got down there on Wednesday and you stayed there through Saturday. Is that right?
That's correct. So we live, my wife and I live in Dayton, Ohio, which is about 3 hours southwest of Cleveland and about 2 hours east of Indianapolis. So real easy. We're real close to the Indiana border. I actually drove by myself on Wednesday morning, got there Wednesday afternoon, because the stuff at the convention center, which is where they had the NFL fan experience set up, is kind of across the street and around the corner, very walkable, even though it was very cold. It was probably minus, for you guys, it was, -5. It was well below zero a lot of the time, for Fahrenheit purposes. Or well below freezing, well below zero for Celsius. But it was, and then the last day it kind of got nice, and it was still cold, but it was at least it was sunny. There was a lot of days that it snowed, and it snowed sideways a couple days, and so a lot of the time he just ended up staying either inside the stadium to see some of the on the field stuff, those drills, or they had the bench press set up at the convention center. And so I drove down on Wednesday, but I wasn't able to get off work Wednesday night. I work my full-time job. I work third shift. So I had to drive back to Dayton, work third shift. Then I went back on Thursday, and we stayed Thursday night and Friday night just outside of downtown in a neighborhood called Fountain Square in an awesome apartment. And then Mrs. Brown's Power Ranger. And yes, if you've seen some of her pictures, she is a Bills fan. She had to have one flaw, but she, as long as the Bills and the Browns, because that you met her at that game,
Yeah.
she was decked out. As long as the Bills and the Browns aren't playing, we get along just fine. So once every 4 years, but who knows? It seems like both of us have found franchise quarterbacks, and maybe we'll be meeting a little more often.
More and more regularly.
Never know.
Exactly.
But yeah, so we stayed. We did not stay for the DB drills on Sunday. I'm also a part-time worship arts director at a church in just outside of Dayton. So the fan experience stuff was over. They did not have anything at the convention center on Sunday. It was just on the field stuff at Lucas Oil on Sunday. So did not get to stay for that day, but had a blast, met a lot of cool people, and then obviously and most notably met and got to hang out with Brady Quinn for a few moments. He was very nice, and obviously
that was brilliant because it seemed like it was almost serendipitous that you were there. Someone saw the jersey and went, "This is amazing. You got to come up here." And then you actually got the nameplate signed by Brady Quinn.
Yeah, that's correct. So the way that everything is set up there in the convention center, it's one of their main kind of rooms. And then a lot of the other convention center is set up for like that you need credentials. But the main spot for the fan experience is the same spot it was. I went 2 years ago and actually bumped into Deshaun Kaiser.
Wow.
And so he also saw the jersey, but he was being handled on his way to an interview, so I wasn't able to get him to sign. And at that point, I did not carry around a second set of nameplates. I do now for this exact reason. So there was a big partition where the bleachers were set up, where you could watch the bench press. And so I was just being nosy, and because I could see that it wasn't completely blocked off, and so they had a bunch of he works for CBS Sports HQ. So they were doing broadcasts every day from that location. So I just happened to see that, there was a credentialed blocked off area. So I figured someone important was over there. And immediately their set was the closest one to where I was standing, but I saw him immediately and then just kind of loitered a little bit until one of the other guys on set noticed some weirdo standing around in a brown Power Ranger, and in a green Power Ranger helmet, and with the jersey that has a whole bunch of names on it. So they came over just to take a picture to show him. But then then I was like, "Can you take this over there for him to sign?" And he obliged. And then they were like, "If you had a Brady Quinn jersey, that would be amazing." I was like, "Oh, don't worry, friends. I have one. It's in the car." So I came back a day or two later wearing a Brady Quinn jersey, and that's the one he ended up. So not only did I get him to sign the nameplate, he signed his jersey that I used to wear of his. So I'm going to get that framed, and he put a Bible verse on it, and it was really cool to get to talk to him just even for a moment.
Wow, excellent. So you do know that you now have to get all the nameplates signed by all the quarterbacks.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I currently have Tyrod Taylor and Brady Quinn. I have Drew Stanton. I ran into him at a training camp in Cleveland, and I told him, like, "Hey man, I hope I never have to put your name on this jersey unless we're resting starters." But he was real cool with it. He signed his, and I've been in talks with Tim Couch on Twitter. I was lucky enough he actually follows me now, which is really cool.
Cool.
And I ran into neighbors of Charlie Fry at the Steelers Browns game in Cleveland.
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, we live right down the street from Charlie. So I gave that patch to them. And hopefully, by some miracle, it gets to him and he signs it. And then at the combine, I ran into a coach for the Eagles.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, look, I know that, this is really weird. And because, the Power Ranger helmet is quite the conversation starter. And then I wasn't wearing the jersey at that time. I think I was either wearing my brown suit that I ran the 40 in, or I was wearing the Brady Quinn jersey that he had just signed.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, like, look, your guy's head coach was, a starter for the Browns. He's on my jersey. If I give you this patch, I gave him my business card that has, my contact information on it. Would you, obviously don't want you to get in trouble or, bother him. I know he's a busy man, but I feel like he's going to be a very difficult signature to get. I have family that lives in Philly, but to get access to a head coach of a Super Bowl winning team, that opportunity usually doesn't present itself super often, but
yeah.
You
might be able to leverage Joe Thomas if you hit him up, because I know that you.
Oh yeah. We've talked about it ad nauseum the few times I've been able to talk to him, and the ultimate goal with it. And I've actually got them. I know people won't be able to see this, but I have the stack right here in my hand.
I can confirm the stack is in his hand.
That's right. Too bad it's not a stack of green, but it's the ultimate goal. Like, technically, yes, the jersey is retired. Baker Mayfield. My personal kind of thing was, we get a quarterback that starts an entire season, starts 16 games. I'll stop wearing the jersey. I'll retire it.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone through several iterations. I used to do it with tape and a screen print jersey that I bought when I was in high school. That was a Tim Couch jersey. The official and original jersey from Brokaw Inc.,
Mm-hmm.
the ad agency that is downtown Cleveland. They have retired. They retired it after the Cavs won the NBA championship,
Mm-hmm.
And somebody threw a brick through their window. So because they didn't like the joke. So I've met those guys a couple times and have not seen that original jersey yet, but I have met the mannequin. Shelly is quite the character. She's a chatty Cathy for sure. But the ultimate goal is to get all those signatures, swap the plates out, because the one that I wear, I don't want to have signatures on, because if I wear it and it gets damaged or it gets rained on or somebody throws nacho cheese all over it, you don't want that on your signatures. I'd love to get it, professionally matted, framed, and then donate that thing to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Not to, and I have this conversation a ton on Twitter, and with people in real life. Like, why would you almost celebrate, such a odd thing? And it's part of our history. There's never been an expansion franchise that has a 50-something year history.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns the city of Cleveland got to retain all of the history that the Browns had, but they had a true expansion franchise when they came back in '99. So I think that has played into the turnover, not only in quarterbacks but in coaches. We're our second owner in 20 years, front office people, because everybody is expecting the Browns to get back to what they were when the team was moved to Baltimore. So I think that plays into that, and I think people don't acknowledge that enough. That you look at the other expansion franchises, the Texans, the Jaguars, like, they started from scratch. And Baltimore is the Ravens are the only franchise that, yes, they were technically started as a franchise, and it's not like the city of Baltimore is unaware of what it's like to lose their team, because the Colts used to be in Baltimore. And sidebar, the original, that Colts team can trace its roots all the way back to the original team in Dayton, Ohio. That was in that first game that Dayton, Ohio team won, the Dayton Triangles. So we can talk about that a little bit too. But so you've got these two scenarios where you've got an expansion franchise that has a 50-plus year history, and a very illustrious one at that. I think aside from the Patriots, they have the most professional
Championships.
football championships.
Yeah.
They have 8. And then you've got an expansion franchise that had all of that history built into it, not only with the team, but with the front office. And you're talking about Ozzie Newsome as, probably one of the, I was at the Pro Football Hall of Fame when he got inducted in.
Mm-hmm.
And to think about that 20 years could have been
ours.
That could have been Cleveland. Ray, I think I was there when Ray Lewis was inducted in, and it's just that could have been brown and orange instead of black and purple or whatever. But that's not our story. And right now, 30 quarterbacks in 20 years is our story. But I'm ready to hang it up. I've got a lot of jerseys that don't get a lot of wear.
Well, hopefully, and I do think I'm very much on the bandwagon of the Baker Mayfield jerseys. They're going to get a lot of wear for time to come, I think, because I think last year was definitely a blip. And speaking of jerseys, actually, before we do, no, we won't. We'll go into the jerseys piece. That there is a lot of chatter, and well, we do know that we are getting new uniforms this year. And listening to Cleveland Browns Daily and stuff, and hearing nuggets from the combine. I think it was Adam Schefter or Rappaport that said that they were speaking to somebody one night, and that they mentioned that OBJ was going to be heavily featured in the modeling of the jerseys. But the jersey thing, I remember when the iteration of jerseys we had prior to these ones, I thought were pretty good. I like those. When this new jersey came along, I didn't hate it. I'm going to say I didn't hate it, but I could understand a fan base that was used to seeing a nice jersey previously and then getting that, and it is a bit radically different. I don't understand why it needs to have the word Cleveland on the front of it. I just don't understand that. But
just in case you get lost, I guess. I'm not really sure.
Exactly, yeah. But
yeah.
I don't know. It's I would be much more hoping for much more traditional, a nice simple brown, white stripes, tiny bit of orange here and there on it. Situation
Right.
Myself. I think they're under pressure to get it right because it's been 5 years of they couldn't draft a quarterback, they couldn't win a game, and they couldn't even dress the team correctly. So
Right.
I think this could be a whole kind of putting a full circle to having a quarterback, having a dynamic head coach, or hopefully having a dynamic head coach this time, a youthful one, having a youthful front office, and finally kind of seeing Jimmy and Dee Haslam taking a back step, and whether people like it or not, taking that back step and allowing DePodesta to do what he was brought in to do, was be strategizing and having these two young people to grow with each other within a franchise. The last piece of, I'm going to call it stink. I know I don't really believe it is, but you know what I mean by it. The last little blemish are those jerseys of the Haslam, of the Haslam kind of 5, 6, 7 years, those jerseys. And once they're gone, and the new ones are unveiled hopefully before the draft. I think all things are pointing that they will be unveiled just before the draft, and we'll have something to rejoice about. We might even win the off season again if we have some good uniforms.
Right, back-to-back off-season champs. I mean, it's not done often, for sure.
No.
I'm kind of in the camp with you. I'm wearing one of the Salute to Service jerseys. It's actually a Joe Hayden jersey, but I like the number 23 and that it's green. Because green apparel is hard to come by, as you, I'm sure, are aware.
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns. Yeah, so we share that. But I see what they tried to do, and I think maybe in some sort of, I'm sure there were decisions or conversations that were had to try to, not overtly, but maybe subconsciously try to detach people's thinking. You don't obviously want to ignore or make people forget the history when they were good, but again, it's a unique situation where you've got a team that was restarted that had a history that went all the way back to 1946. And they dominated the 40s and the 50s, and then the last championship was in 64. So you think about all that history, and then they were really good in the 90s with the Cardiac Kids and going to
Mhm.
the championship games and losing heartbreakers with the fumble and the drive
Fumble.
and things like that.
Right.
And I would say, luckily and unluckily, myself, growing up, my family wasn't, we live in Dayton, so we live way closer to Cincinnati, but
Mhm.
nobody in my family was really a football fan. So I didn't have any real allegiance to a professional team. And one of my older sisters, I have 4 sisters. One of my oldest sister married a guy from Cleveland in 1998, and they got married. They had been dating for a while, and they got married in '99, right like the summer before the Browns came back,
Mhm.
or the summer that they came back in '99. And I was starting high school in 1999, so I was very impressionable. I had only had one other brother-in-law in my life, and
Yeah.
so I had to like everything this guy liked. And he was from Cleveland. He liked football. He also liked professional wrestling, which I was big into when I was in middle school and high school. So we got the pay-per-views and stuff, and then that naturally just kind of like that relationship blossomed into being professional football fans.
Mhm.
I went to my first game in Cincinnati. It was Cincinnati, Cleveland, obviously, and the Browns won. And fun fact, it was in December. I was dating I was dating my first wife, not Mrs. Brown's Power Ranger. She would probably not have been interested in dressing up or being seen with me dressed up. But she was a Bengals fan, and the Browns won on a last-second long touchdown run from none other than Lee Suggs.
Of course.
And the household name of Lee Suggs. But yeah, that was a great experience. And then from then, the fandom has been born. I remember, pre smartphones and wide access to the internet. I'm gonna like date myself now. I sound like a boomer. But checking the Browns scores in the newspaper the next day on Monday morning at school, because they weren't on TV here. You had to you could have you could have the Bengals game on the TV, and then you could like turn the radio to the Browns game, and that would really mess with you, listening to one game and watching another one. But now with the advent of different technologies and being able to get those games other ways, there are very few Sundays that I'm either not in Cleveland or not able to watch it at our local watering hole.
Yeah, much the same here. We've got a Browns backers club, and I've said it numerous times on the podcast that we've got a backers club here in Galway, the only one actually in Ireland. And what happens is, like, we would regularly get emails from maybe a tour bus, a load of tourists from Ohio that are based anywhere in Ireland, and you can pretty much drive from one side of Ireland to the other in 2 hours.
Right.
You could drive from top to bottom in 6 hours, 7 hours maybe. And we regularly get emails saying, okay, you're in Galway, we're taking the bus up there and we're going watching the game with you.
We'll see you in 3 hours.
Yeah, essentially that's what it is. And we've had some great nights there where the bus driver didn't have great nights, because by the time all the fans left, were really drunk, and we were really drunk, but we didn't care. We had our fun. And it actually, you know what, it bar the opening game of last year, the Tennessee game, whenever we get over 15 people at a meetup, I think we're undefeated, apart from that Tennessee game. But I think it's something like 10-1. I think we are at the moment, whenever we get over 15 people. So anybody who's a Browns fan in Ireland, they just have to come. It's you have to do it. If you can't be in Cleveland to watch the game, the other best place to watch it in Ireland is in Garvey's Pub in Eyre Square in Galway, and there is a bit of luck in there as well. So that is that's definitely.
You heard it here first, folks. Everybody just needs to go to Galway and watch Browns games there, and we'll be undefeated. I say it's 2020. We could go 20-0 in 2020.
Wouldn't that be brilliant? I think we're
season champ, preseason champ, Super Bowl champ.
We're due a 20-0 season. We're definitely
exactly. We need to change that win ratio.
Exactly.
Sure.
But I suppose looking forward to obviously being at the combine and so on, and looking forward to the year ahead. Obviously, we're big into free agency at the moment, and a couple of rumblings came from the combine, and when free when agents and when front office people are there, there's always these murmurings, and it came out over the weekend that Joe Schobert doesn't look like he's going to be playing his trade in Cleveland anymore. You didn't hear anything, or what are your thoughts on that, on Joe Schobert?
I mean, you definitely hate to see it when when somebody who has consistently performed well, is a leader on the team, is a leader on the field. But that is, you talk about guys like Jack Duffin or any of the guys from PFF that are talking about the way that you build a sustainable, successful team. Like, this is inevitably going to happen. You're talking about, we can negotiate right now with Myles Garrett. Next year, we can start negotiating with Baker Mayfield. These are going to be record-setting. These are going to be record-setting deals, and who knows how the pending CBA. Because I heard some, some people talking about that. Nothing like breaking news or anything. Just the fact that was, being talked about a lot after the combine stuff was over, because a lot of stuff gets, a lot of backdoor deals and handshakes are getting done in some of the fancy bars and stuff where they don't let people wearing football pads and Power Ranger helmets. They usually don't let them in. But I did see a couple of Browns, execs and things like that, and actually ran into a guy who played high school football with Kevin Stefanski.
Oh, excellent.
So we got to hang out with him a lot of the week. He was trying to network and trying to get into the NFL game, but he showed me a picture of himself missing a block, unfortunately, and Stefanski took a shot underneath the chin with a helmet. And so he apparently has a scar underneath his chin due to this individual who will remain nameless.
I'm sure Kevin Stefanski knows exactly who you're talking about.
He knows, he did. And of course, we reconnected one night after we had gone out. We went to the PFF live podcast. That was cool. At the Tin Roof. And cool. later that night, he told me that he ended up running into Stefanski, but we had already gone back to our apartment. So I was real salty. I wouldn't say that we got drunk per se, because you always want to keep your faculties about yourself, especially when you're, fighting the forces of evil, as some of us do. But we capped our night off at a Steak and Shake downtown and ended up, back at our apartment. It was really only like 5 or 10 minutes away. But he texted me the next morning and said, "Man, you shouldn't have left as early as you did," which was like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
But by that point I had been awake for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So my body was literally shutting down at that point. So if I had met Stefanski, I probably wouldn't have remembered it, or he would have been like, "Why is that guy asleep on the floor? And why is he wearing a Power Rangers helmet?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy who you can just bump into.
Exactly. And you know what? I suppose that's the beauty of things like the Combine, because it's where everybody wants to go down there, as you mentioned, networking and so on, because it's the time of year when the whole NFL is in one place, and
exactly.
it's a great opportunity to get down, and people are loose. It's realistically, it's kind of almost nearly the start of coaches off season. They go to the Combine, they go, brilliant,
right,
fantastic. We've only got about a week left. We're going to hand in our dossiers, and then, I think it was pretty much about a week to 10 days after it probably was after pro days and so on. So maybe it was about 2 or 3 weeks last year that Mayock just got rid of the whole scouting staff. Right. So their kind of job comes to an end really over the next couple of weeks. So they're on they're looking forward to a bit of downtime for themselves, I think. And, people might have a few drinks and get a bit loose with what they say, which can be everyone's benefit.
Indianapolis is an awesome city. Like I said, I went 2 years ago, but only went one day. I got to see, it was the running backs day and I think offensive tackle day. And I spent almost like half and half. I spent the beginning of the day at the stadium watching the on the field stuff. I saw Saquon run his 40, which was stupid and like ridiculously fast. And everybody was asking me if the Browns were going to draft Saquon Barkley #1. I said probably not, but super happy with Nick Chubb as our featured back. But that you can walk anywhere within 10 or 15 minutes. There are scooters all over the place. I'm sure there's a video of me in a Power Ranger helmet and football pads riding a scooter with Mrs. Brown's Power Ranger on the back, holding on for dear life. And it's a lot of, like, the city is a lot of fun. There's great restaurants, there's great people. One night that I think it was Thursday night, there was a basketball game. So there were there's a stadium right downtown. The Indiana Pacers play. Yep. There were people that were walking around there after the game had let out. Everybody was just in a good mood, man. It was cold. People were looking for friendly people, and it always pays off to be friendly to strangers, for sure.
Absolutely. And sure, I was the beneficiary of your friendship to a stranger. You literally didn't know me from the man in the street, except for the fact that I was wearing a big leprechaun hat that day, and was draped in an Irish flag with a Cleveland Browns jersey on underneath. And that's what happens. That's how you make connections.
Yeah.
Well,
don't sell yourself short. I knew who you were. I've listened to the pod.
That's me. Yeah, well, didn't want to come in here sounding all Billy Big Boots,
Yeah.
I've got one last question about the combine. You didn't see Tony Grossi around there at any stage, did you?
I did not. I did not.
Wasn't watching any of the drills, no?
Nope, I don't think he was. Obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, you don't know that there was a bit of we'll call it Mike Gate or hot Mike Gate. Yeah, something to that effect. Apparently, there was some words spoken that were not mentioned, were not intended to be heard by the internet and the world as a whole. So, obviously, we won't be repeating those words or anything like that. But yeah, there's obviously no love lost between Baker Mayfield and Tony Grossi, and I think that that toxicity finally boiled over to the point where he either didn't care if anybody heard him or was just so sure that the microphone was off that that he just was going to say whatever it is that he was going to say. I feel like anyone who is around microphones for a living, myself included, and I say that very loosely as, being a part-time worship arts director, but anytime a microphone is in your hand, you have to assume it's on. Just like anytime you're holding a gun, you have to assume it's loaded. Just like anytime you're holding a gun, you never point it at anybody and assume that it's loaded, even if you know that it's not. Mm-hmm. So those should be two cardinal rules of anybody in broad, especially somebody as high profile as him, should know better. But I guess you do it for so long, you feel like and I'm not saying that I think this, but some people have said or think that maybe he just felt like he was so untouchable or had done it for so long that you can really get away with whatever you want. And I kind of hope that, if anything, it ends up being a bit of like a warning shot to, like, as a prospect, and I ran into several guys that, I had either heard of their names or have not heard of their names, and got a chance to say, hey man, good luck in April. And then I got a lot of thank you sirs, which made me feel super old. I had to go out to CVS and get some Just for Men to get rid of the gray in the beard. I don't like being sirred with somebody who's 3 feet taller than us. Yeah.
I got a gray beard.
Somebody who's
it's okay now that we're Kevin Stefanski season.
That's right. That's right.
We want. If he's young as you want too. That's good.
Yeah, well, I think Coach Zaddy, as he's
exactly,
as he's referred to sometimes. But I don't know, as a prospective prospect, or as a prospect, a prospective prospect is kind of redundant, that you look at that situation and that culture that's there, where I think ultimately it is just the desire for people to want to feel good about Cleveland Browns football again. And because the last 20 years, aside from a couple blips here and there, people don't feel good. So everything has leaned hard into, the pessimistic side of things, and always wanting to be, seeing the negative instead of really trying to bring about culture change. And I think now, like you had mentioned earlier about the Haslams and the front office alignment now, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have owners that are involved, because you got to think about it from their perspective. As a billionaire, you don't become a billionaire by accident.
Yeah.
So I know many people who, like, unless you're so rich that it doesn't matter if you own a $1 billion
industry
industry and it does well or not, like a $1 billion asset, because the Browns are worth, I forget what the sale was. It was north of $1 billion when they bought it from the Lerners. But I think they fell into the same thing because they came from being minority owners in the Steelers, a very stable and solid organization. And you in anywhere, even here at the church where I work, we're trying to bring about some culture change. You can't do it overnight.
No.
Especially if you've got a history of being successful. That's not going to happen overnight. So you get a lot of that where you see teams that will install something new and they have success initially, and then the entire league tries to copy it.
Yeah.
And then by that point, because the NFL is filled with lots of very, very smart people, the league adjusts. And so what worked the year before isn't going to work this year. And I think they always kind of had that disconnect between trying to navigate between restocking during the draft, getting veterans, and then different philosophies, from the front office perspective. I think now everyone, and you've got a ton of youth. Like, I think they were bringing in some guys that were in the twilight of their career, but it was still a name. And that was at least something that the fans could get excited about. But then, at that point, they're either not interested in doing anything new than what they've always done, and what they've always done might not work anymore.
Exactly.
So I think it's an exciting off season to be a Browns fan, to see an organization that seems to, after 20 years, maybe finally be on the same page from ownership all the way down to head coach. And I feel like the team itself, you talk about Baker Mayfield, and I had tons of people ask me, "Oh, you're going to be adding to your jersey?" I said, "I don't think so."
No.
Because you look at a guy like, I think Baker Mayfield is the only quarterback in that draft class. You look at the 5 guys that were drafted in that first round, and you could even throw in whatever, Mason Rudolph, who was drafted in the second round, that guy. But any of those quarterbacks, I don't think any of them could be successful or have as much success as Baker has had, having, what is he going to be on his 5th head coach and 4th offensive coordinator in his going into his 3rd year, and he hasn't even played 3 full years. He came in his rookie year in game 3. So you tell me, like, how is anybody supposed to, in any industry or in any job, how is anybody supposed to thrive in that kind of situation?
Exactly. And as you say, hopefully this is New Dawn. New Dawn is growing, and there's been a lot of change, not just in the internals of the way that the Browns are run and so on, but there seems to be a lot of change in and around Cleveland itself, and hopefully it's this is a precursor of something of good things to come. Well, Mr. Brown's Power Ranger, this has been a fantastic chat. It really has. It's great to get your insight in the combine. It's great to chat to you again, because it's been since last.
Absolutely, it's been too long.
Exactly.
I talk to you all the time in the car. You just usually don't talk back to me directly because you don't know that I'm talking to you.
Yeah, you roar at me. You might say, "Your hungover take is stupid, Neil. Shut up." Because there's been some of those recently. But no, listen, thanks so much for your time. Everybody, go follow him on @Browns with a Z, BROWNZ, Power, POWER, and then RNGR, like the cool kids do it. So it's Browns.
That's right.
Power Ranger.
That's right.
With no vowels, and you'll be able to see him there. Look, this guy isn't a one-trick pony. You should see he's got some great stuff there. Oh, no, he just destroyed my whole house. He's got some great stuff on there. Please go give him a follow, and he's really interactive. And if you're looking for positivity, you'll absolutely find it on that Twitter page. So
appreciate it.
That's why I consistently go back to it the whole time. But listen, thanks so much for your time. For everybody that's out there, please give the podcast a follow on at 2 Green Browns. Please give John a follow on at John Cahill _IRL. Give us a like, a share, a subscribe, everything, whatever you want to do on Apple Podcast. And until next time, all that's left to say is go Brownies.
Go Browns.